Welcome back. Presidential candidate, or should I say former presidential candidate of Labour Party in the 2023 general elections in Nigeria, Peter Obi, yesterday gave his official response to the Supreme Court's verdict upholding the Bola Tinubu victory, or the victory of Bola Tinubu of the Progressives Congress in that election. In a press conference yesterday, November 6, 2023, Obi expressed his disappointment with the verdict of the Supreme Court, describing it as, quote, a breach of confidence and a total failure of justice, end of quote. Obi alleged that there was widespread rigging and electoral malpractice in the election, and that the Supreme Court had failed to address the issues or the irregularities. He also criticized the court for its counterintuitive judgment, those were his words, which he said, quote, transferred a heavy moral burden from the courtrooms to national conscience, end of quote. And Peter Obi ended his speech by reiterating his commitment to the fight for a better Nigeria. However, responding to Peter Obi's presser, Bayo Onanuga, special advisor on information and strategy to Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, accused Obi of hypocrisy. Onanuga said that Obi had benefited from the judiciary in the past, but was now criticizing it when it did not rule in his favor. Onanuga also accused Obi of being a bad loser and of trying to undermine public confidence in the judiciary. He urged Nigerians to ignore Obi's sour grapes, as he put it, and to focus on the task of building a better Nigeria under the leadership of Bola Tinubu as president. Now, we're asking, what should Nigerians make of this? Our guest tonight, Felix Morka, National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, and of course, we'll be taking him before we take the spokesperson of the Labour Party, Tanko Yenusa. It's good to have you back, Felix Morka.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Did you watch Mr. Obi's speech, press conference?
Well, I watched portions of it, but I did read it when I had the opportunity to do so.
All right. I'm sure you're aware of the issues he raised, and what's the All Progressives Congress reaction to his speech and to his statement?
Well, first of all, listening to him, the portions that I did, and reading the text of his statement, I thought it was was a belated statement, reaction to the decision of the Supreme Court on the matter. And second, I also thought it was very grouchy. Listening to him, it was, just an endless whining about his loss at the Supreme Court. Now, if you really break down his statement, he simply said that he accused the court of, being indifferent to public opinion. Nothing in the statement, said anything about, the reason he lost, or what, in fact, knew the way they did. He didn't attack the court on the substance of the appeal. He simply just dismissed the court because it didn't go his way, and of course poured a lot of invectives, used very foul language in describing our courts. Now, what was curious was that in the same statement, Peter Obi acknowledged that he himself was a beneficiary of court judgments that went his way. And at those times, he hailed the courts as, the beacon of democracy. But now, because the court, went against him, he has simply disparaged the courts, called them, disgraceful, and that they, are, disservice to our democracy. You see, we cannot live and conduct our political life in that manner. You cannot, on the one hand, every time the court gives judgment that is in your favor, you celebrate the courts. And when the courts don't, you lampoon them. If we go by that standard, then we will, I think, be forced to do away with our courts.
All right.
But we will do away with our courts because of Peter Obi.
Okay.
That's the nature of litigation. You win sometimes and you lose sometimes.
All right. What's the All Progressives Congress take on Obi's assessment that the Supreme Court's verdict was a, quote, breach of confidence and a total failure of justice?
That's just utter nonsense. That's childish for him to say that. I mean, that is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court interpreted the law. and evaluated the evidence Peter Obi brought to court. If anything, if Peter Obi should be blaming anyone, I think he should be blaming his lawyers, who actually did not serve him well. Either they ought to have advised him he had no case to present in the first place, or that the quality of evidence they brought to court was manifestly, unreliable and not, provable. You don't win cases on the basis of, public opinion. I think Peter Obi allowed himself truly to be affected by the hysteria, the mass hysteria of his followers, on the internet and, on the fringes, and ensconced himself in that belief. As I said in my statement, I think he was simply living in, living an alternate reality. He was not living in reality. And I think that somebody needs to really, wake him up to smell the coffee. This is done. But, again, I welcome his statement that, he's willing to engage in opposition politics. We're looking forward to that. And, in my statement, I urged, and we're hoping that Peter Obi will conduct himself, and the Labour Party for that matter, will conduct themselves more maturely and constructively as they do so.
What does the All Progressives Congress, Felix, have to say about Peter Obi's allegations of widespread rigging and electoral malpractice in that election that the court said Tinubu won?
Well, at this stage, I think that every Nigerian watched the proceedings, play out in court, both at the Court of First Instance and at the Supreme Court. We are done with this matter. We're not going to relitigate this matter. We don't have the authority. The courts are the final arbiters in this matter, and they have decided on the two levels of court. And they resolved and decided finally by the Supreme Court that these allegations are simply bogus, are without any merit, are without any sense for that matter. You don't just go to court and allege. When you allege, you must prove. Peter Obi and the Labour Party, just like his cohort, Atiku Abubakar of the PDP, failed miserably to prove the case and to prove the allegations they brought to court, which is why the court ruled as they did, dismissing their suit.
Are you saying Obi, in your refusal to comment on Obi's allegations of widespread rigging electoral malpractice in that election, are you indirectly saying he may be right, but you stick to what the court says? Or are you disagreeing with him that there was no widespread rigging or electoral malpractice?
No, I told you that that's utter nonsense. I dismissed that already. So it's not just about the courts. It's about facts. You don't just make allegations. Allegations are, you back allegations up with facts, provable facts. You don't just say them because you can speak and say words. That is not how it works. Peter Obi cannot come on the rostrum with microphones in front of him and make allegations that when he was offered the opportunity, he went to court. He had the opportunity to prove those allegations, and he failed to do so. So he cannot come back again, in his comfort zone on social media to begin to make and bandy around allegations that the Supreme Court of the country has settled. So that's the point. His allegation is bogus, is without any merit. That is what we believe. And the courts have certified that that is exactly how it is.
Okay. So would you describe this election, this 2023 general elections, as probably the best election Nigeria has had in its in this country republic, at least?
The election of February, whether the presidential election and all of the elections for the other levels of office were free and fair and in substantial compliance with the laws of our land.
All right, Felix. Peter Obi has said that Nigeria needs to transition to, in that speech, he said Nigeria needs to transition to a single-term presidency of 5 years. He wants this to rotate among Nigeria's geopolitical zones, or rather, rotate between the north and the south for 5 years. So when it goes to the north, the component zones will agree where it's going to go to. When it goes to the south, the component zones there will agree where it's supposed to go. In your opinion, do you think this is what Nigeria needs to strengthen its democracy?
Look, Peter Obi is a citizen of the Federal Republic. He is free to to think and to make suggestions, his own ideas for how things, ought to run in our country. But we also have constituted authorities. We have the National Assembly. If Peter Obi has any proposals for reform, either of the Electoral Act or for that matter, or of our Constitution, he's very welcome to table those memos before the right bodies, and I'm sure that they will give it the consideration that it deserves. But I wouldn't sit here to make any further comments on Peter Obi's ideas. Now, by the way, there are a wide range of ideas that Nigerians have put forward in the past for how our political offices should be either zoned or managed. So this is not the first time anyone is coming up with ideas, but I urge him to approach the right authorities to canvass those thoughts that he shared.
All right. Finally, Obi touched on the current state of the nation, particularly with the economic situation and also government spending. What does APC have to say with regards to the tanking naira, situation with the naira versus the U.S. dollar and major international currencies? Also, some discontent amongst Nigerians about government spending, especially with the appropriation supplementary budget that was recently passed by the National Assembly. People are asking, why is the government spending on things like yachts, presidential fleets, and all that when the country is in dire economic straits? So I want you to talk about the economy in terms of the naira and its struggles, and also the supplementary budget. What's the party's position?
I missed the beginning part of your question. Can you rephrase that, please?
Okay, yeah. I'm saying that Obi paid some attention to the current affairs of the country under the leadership of Bola Tinubu as president. And we're linking that to the struggle with the naira versus the dollar and major international currencies. The insinuation is that the APC-led federal government has performed abysmally and woefully with the naira. What does the party say about that? Secondly, there's some discontent among some Nigerians with the way the government spending has gone under this administration, and some expressed that discontent, particularly with the supplementary budget that was recently passed. Money being spent on vehicles, money being spent on a yacht, and other things.
Well, I'll assume that I heard your questions enough to answer. Regarding the naira, now we are aware that under this government there was a policy move to unite the various regimes of the naira in relation to the US dollar. Now, that was done to further consolidate the government's plans and programs towards reforming our economy and reinventing our economy for the benefit of every Nigerian. Now, in the short term, granted, every economist is aware and they agree that these policy decisions are not without transient difficulties. But as you know, over the last week, the naira has gained significantly against the US dollar. Now, we are expecting that this trend will continue and bring it down to levels that is closer to the official exchange rate of the naira. Now, Nigeria is a massive economy, and there are many actors in the economy, sometimes people who act against the best interests of the economy itself. But the government is determined to narrow the gap between the official exchange rate and the parallel market rates, and unleash the potential, the prospects of investment. Because that's the only way you're going to get people coming into the country to invest, when they can get value for the money they bring in.
Okay, because of time, just very quickly, sir.
You have this arbitrage that's significant.
But yeah, because of time, quickly, your thoughts, your response to the question on government spending. You have National Assembly buying cars, presidential yacht being included in the supplementary budget, president's wife, 1.5 billion naira, and a lot of spending people think is unnecessary at this time.
look, people, I think, have the freedom to look at figures without any context and make decisions. Nigerians have the freedom to do so, and government itself has the duty to listen. But the point is that appropriations for vehicles and the likes are also important needs that government has to enable those who carry out functions for the state to do so. Now, that's not my department. I speak for the party. But from what I read and from what I know in the public space, I think that the National Assembly ultimately has the authority to appropriate funds for its own running, but for the executive branch as well. So at the end of the day, I think we must, again, be patient to see what additional value, what incremental value both the National Assembly and the state and the executive branch are able to bring, in order to justify the expenditures that they're engaging in.
Felix Morka, I wish we had more time, but we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you so very kindly.